Thanks so much for that introduction and that information. I really appreciate that you're all here to spend this next hour with me discussing how to scaffold instruction and spelling. I mentioned as we were preparing for the session that I'm tempted to skip my own to attend some of the others that are happening concurrently because they just are fabulous. So I'm looking forward to those recordings also. As a middle school special education reading interventionist, spelling was especially challenging to address with my students, even as their reading improved. I currently collaborate with schools and districts as an assistant director at the Center for the Study and Treatment of Dyslexia, and supporting older students with spelling is definitely an ongoing need. Here at the center, we not only collaborate with schools and districts on professional development, but we also assess students for characteristics of dyslexia and support them and their families with their educational programming as well. And we have a very active research arm to our center. We produce a lot of free resources, so I encourage you to check out the website and see if there's something there that you might find useful. We've got fact sheets, ebooks and planning guides, some lesson frames, and oops, let me get my screen rearranged. There we go. And also some previous conference videos for professional learning that we offer as well, and some short format expert minute videos that highlight specific experts and areas of instruction and intervention. But let's get to this session's topic. I'm sharing an approach to reinforcing foundational reading skills as you teach students who are having difficulty spelling those big multisyllabic words. How do we help those students regain those foundational skills in order to address the content in front of them as they mature in age and grade, and those reading expectations become even more complex? I'm going to model a structured literacy routine that integrates those foundational code knowledge concepts into spelling. And we'll focus on using words from authentic text to support the transfer of reading and writing skills to the core curriculum and standards. I hope you'll consider these questions as we go through this information. Does this confirm the approach that you're using in the intervention setting? Could you use this to supplement or make your instruction in the intervention setting even more robust by adding these routines? And this doesn't necessarily have to be just in the intervention setting. That's who the target is here, but this would also be great initial instruction or reinforcing instruction in the core setting as well. The model lesson I'm sharing is based on one small part of the evidence-based recommendations from this IES practice guide. I was so excited when this came out in 2022 because there had been sort of a dearth of guidance for providing intensive reading intervention for our older students, for those in upper elementary, middle, and high school. So I was especially keen on this, and as were many, as this came into publishing in 2022. And the authors distilled evidence from a meta-analysis of 114 studies that focused on reading intervention, and they distilled that into practical guidance with teachers. I urge you to read and use this resource if you're not already familiar with it. There are 4 recommendations in this guide. I'm referring to the first one, recommendation 1, which is evidence-based instruction, building students' decoding skills so they can read complex multisyllabic words. And I'm specifically focusing down here on a sub-recommendation there, teaching students to spell the patterns and words they're learning to read. We know that spelling instruction supports both reading and writing. The spelling lesson I'm modeling also integrates an explicit lesson format as part of a structured literacy approach to the instruction. And that structured literacy approach is derived from Archer and Hughes' text, as seen here on explicit instruction. There are copious amounts of evidence for using direct explicit instruction to introduce new skills and concepts and to intentionally support those who need more intensive instruction and practice. We'll focus on the explicit integration of those foundational skills that are needed for spelling longer multisyllabic words. Before I move into the routine, there's quite a bit of essential knowledge that I need to acknowledge and that you should have developed for yourself and your students in order to use these spelling routines from where we're at. While the purpose of today's time together is to model the routines, I do want to emphasize that you and your students both need to be informed about these layers of language to fully develop reading and writing skills, and for you to respond to their errors and to plan practice items insightfully and thoughtfully. Students should be explicitly taught syllable patterns, for example, and how they predict the spelling of vowel sounds. Hopefully, this is already integrated into your structured literacy approach to instruction and intervention. But if not, we need to lay that foundation, that foundational knowledge for ourselves and our students. Syllable patterns can be very helpful for both reading and for hearing the vowel sound to predict the spelling pattern. I've included in a basic syllable pattern chart in the handouts for this session for your reference. If you'd like to download that one, certainly there are others. You can use this as an advanced organizer to review syllable patterns for your lesson as you target specific types of words. This type of advanced organizer also offers a cognitive support for your students, so they can focus on the reading and spelling task rather than trying to recall the pattern types themselves. Notice that the basic syllable patterns here are included: closed syllable, open syllable, silent E, vowel team, consonant LE. As noted on the full sheet, if you download that, there are more complexities that can be addressed when syllabication is included in a structured literacy approach to your instruction, such as the category of final stable syllables, of which consonant LE is the most frequent example there. Here on this chart, you'll notice I've included the schwa sound, that unaccented vowel sound, as an expected exception to any syllable type because it frequently occurs with multi-syllable words, and that's our goal for this session together. Essential prior knowledge number 2, our students also need to be taught prefixes and suffixes to support word reading and spelling. They need to be able to recognize re as a prefix in restore and as part of the first syllable in the word restaurant in order to differentiate that, a prefix and a base word from a syllable. Another example here is recognizing that est is a suffix in the word windiest versus a syllable in the word digest. You can find this list of high-frequency affixes in that IES practice guide noted earlier. An older study found that the top 20 of each group, the top 20 prefixes you see here, the top 20 suffixes you see here, were found to make up 97% of affix words in printed school English in grades 3 through 9. So this is a real high utility list. Students will benefit from learning these in support of spelling, reading, and vocabulary development too. All right, another piece of essential prior knowledge, number 3, students should also be explicitly taught these real high frequency spelling rules for adding suffixes to base words. There is more complexity. There are additional rules here, but these are those high utility ones that we need to ensure they are aware of. The doubling rule, when to double the final consonant letter in the base word, as in funny. The dropping rule, dropping the silent E from a base word when adding a suffix, as in timing, and also the changing rule, when to change that Y to an I at the end of a base word for a word like happiness when adding that suffix. So again, I'm just briefly looking at these as essential prior knowledge that needs to be in place as you get to this multi-syllable spelling routine, so that you can identify I'm on track for that, or we might need to go back and layer in some foundational knowledge for ourselves and our students. So keep that in mind. We've got just a couple more here. Essential prior knowledge number 4 that's going to be assumed here. We and our students should be knowledgeable about how accent or stress, however you want to refer to that, how that affects how we speak, read, and spell words. We have this wonderful ebb and flow with our oral language that we have reflected in good reading prosody and then in attempting to spell a word that is said orally when it has some stressed and unstressed syllables. Students can use that information to think flexibly about spelling unaccented syllables with that schwa sound, like the difference between reside when it's affixed as resident and stable as its own base word versus the unaccented suffix employable. Students need this knowledge in order to support that accurate spelling for these long words. In addition, this is still part of that stress and accent. That schwa refers to that unstressed vowel sound, which is pervasive in those multisyllable words. So many word parts are not spelled exactly as they're sounded when we speak them. We don't want to ask our students to just sound it out, especially for these complex, longer words. That wouldn't set them up for success. During this explicit instruction, we'll divide words into syllables or morphemes and spell each part. Then combine, write, check, and read the word. Be sure to prepare your spelling words appropriately so that you dictate and students chunk words by syllable or morpheme, whichever lends itself best to the word. That's part of your preparation. In this case, imitate would be best chunked into its 3 syllables, imitate, and mishandle into its 2 morphemes, mishandle. As needed, we could then spell the base word handle by syllables if students need that additional scaffolding. All right, number 5 here for essential prior knowledge. Students also need that vowel flexing for reading and spelling words with those variable vowel sounds and spellings that can be very tricky. When they've been given explicit instruction in increasingly complex phonics concepts in a logical sequence, they can apply that knowledge flexibly to read long words. In this case, we'll focus on the island was created from a blank of the ocean floor. When reading, we could guess, is this upheaval? We know that EA can represent that eh sound as in bread. That doesn't sound like a word I know. Could it be upheaval, like A is in steak? Or could it be upheaval? If we've got a lot of word knowledge in our oral language, that's really going to benefit decoding and spelling as well, so they can use vocabulary to verify the sound of the word. When asked to spell upheaval, we also have to have knowledge of spelling patterns and the situations in which you may choose to use a different spelling pattern for the same sound, so they can choose the correct spelling of the sound. All right, and finally, essential prior knowledge number 6 here, knowledge of common morphemes from Anglo-Saxon, Latin, and Greek language roots. Those influences on English help facilitate spelling, reading, vocabulary, and reading comprehension overall. Lots of bang for your buck as our students get into more complex text and word reading here. The hope is that a scope and sequence of instruction has been introduced in your structured literacy approach, along with building that knowledge of syllabication, accent, schwa, vowel sounds, speaking about affixes and morphemes here and word roots. Derivatives that share a root support both spelling and meaning of words. And this can help you recover that schwad vowel sound for spelling, as in spelling that second vowel sound in competition with an E, because we know it's derived from the base word compete. And thinking about the meaning of magician, one who does magic, in order to keep that root spelling intact, despite all of those pronunciation changes when it's lengthened as the suffix is added. Okay, so along with that essential prior knowledge, we're thinking about working with students, older students, those in upper elementary and beyond, who have likely been struggling with word level reading skills, thinking about students with dyslexia in particular, and certainly those who have struggled with spelling. So we want to make sure that we are honoring their experience. We want to acknowledge that they bring different experiences and strengths to the class. We want to remember that spelling skills and IQ are not related. So we want to make sure they understand that difficulty with spelling does not reflect a lack of intelligence. We need more explicit practice, more explicit instruction, more practice opportunities, more integration of these layers of language to help support their success with spelling these long words. We want to help them engage with the content as linguists studying the English language. And we want to avoid those elementary terms and words and texts that they might think are childish as they continue on into the upper grades. Thinking about from the word perspective, we want to help them understand that the word itself is a doorway into the layers of language and meaning contained by that word. All words are comprised of these layers of language that we can access for decoding, spelling, meaning. The phonemic layer is necessary for beginning reading instruction, and it's helpful for spelling single syllable words and short words and single syllables. As students encounter those longer words with more complex phonics patterns, reading and spelling longer words by chunks becomes necessary. We need to teach our students about both syllables and morphemes so they can confidently take on those longer words. We also need to know which layer is best suited for decoding and spelling a particular word. Can it best be sounded out by phonemes, like the word thrift? Get that up there. Is it a longer word that is best divided by syllables, like energy, into those 3 syllables? Or does the word contain morphemes, those affixes and base words that hold both sound and meaning? And it would be better to divide it as transportable. Our older struggling readers may need support at the phoneme layer of reading and spelling, yet they're expected to read those more complex multisyllable words. They likely don't want to read and write about the fat cat on the mat. We don't want them to either. We can work on those complex words by breaking them down into their syllables and morphemes, then spelling each part at the phoneme layer as needed, and building back up into those longer words. All right, a few more non-negotiables for our instructional technique. We're layering up, getting ready for that routine, building up all of our foundational information here. This is going to set you up for success and your students up for success for this kind of intervention. We'll use an explicit instruction routine that includes the I do, we do, you do process for modeling and practice. You should display advanced organizers like the syllable pattern chart there that support your lesson content and routines, so students know exactly what to do and to enable them to focus their mental workspace on learning the concept, not on the routine or the pattern. And we want students to bind the sound, spelling, and meaning of words together in their memory. So students should activate their phonological processor by reading and spelling out loud as they practice. This should be noisy work. A few more non-negotiables are needed to set you up here. Let me see. We need to incorporate meaning for words that they may not know, because again, we're binding together sound, spelling, and meaning. We need to monitor their practice and give corrective and affirmative feedback. That immediate corrective feedback as best we can so students don't practice errors. And that affirmative feedback allows us to restate the skill or strategy or pattern they use to be successful, and restate that concept one more time and encourage them to, again, draw on the skills and strategies they've been taught in order to be successful. We need to plan for lots of modeling and practice based on student progress and plan instruction with words that support the transfer of skills from the intervention setting to those core expectations. We want to use authentic content and be attentive to core standards. The intervention setting is where we build up those skills. We want to transfer that back to their core expectations. All right, so we're going to pull all of that together using the IES guide recommendations and the 9 steps in this explicit lesson format from Archer and Hughes's book. It can be applied to any content that's new or in which students need extra support. In this case, I'm going to apply this lesson format to supporting struggling students, specifically those with a word level reading deficit, dyslexia, to build multi-syllable word spelling skills. So we'll go through each of those 9 lesson steps bit by bit as I model and explain how this lesson was created. I've provided a sample student practice lesson in the downloads for this session. It matches the instruction I'll model in just a moment. In order to prepare that lesson, I needed to plan my instructional targets based on student assessment and my observations. So we need to know where the weaknesses are and how that coordinates with the instructional expectations in the core as well. In this example, assessment showed weaknesses with reading and spelling words with vowel teams, suffixes, and final stable syllables. We know the IES guide recommends that we teach students to spell the words they're learning to read. And we'll use a structured literacy approach to revisit those foundational skills that may be weak or missing that are needed in consolidation to spell long words. In order to support transfer of skills and standard expectations to that core instruction, I've pulled words from the required reading. The text included many long words that fit my instructional targets, so this is a good match. This happens to be a language arts text, but you could choose words from any content area, from science, social studies, history, whatever works for your targets and your students' needs. In this particular lesson, I'm modeling based on words pulled from the short story, The Seventh Man. And this lesson will focus on spelling words with the consonant LE pattern. I thought through the subskills that students need to read and spell words with this pattern as part of my preparation. They'll need to be able to identify spoken syllables in order to break them into parts for spelling. They need to have a recognition of the consonant LE syllable pattern. They need to understand that concept of stress and that schwa sound so that we can use that information for spelling the word. And we want to think about those subskills not as reteaching. Again, hopefully all of that prior knowledge has been part of your scope and sequence of instruction and or intervention. So this isn't really reteaching time. We're priming the students for the information they need for their learning objectives. We're setting them up for success by piecing this together synthetically, building up from the smallest bit to the whole. This is the student practice page that goes along with the lesson. I'll reference it throughout as I model, so we'll see parts of this together. All right, here's our 9 lesson steps here. We'll start with step 1. You're going to gain the student's attention. Hopefully you already have a procedure that you use to get attention, to get them ready to learn. You'll start the lesson by referring hopefully to an advanced organizer. I have this one, Look and Listen, that has the eye and the ear. I use look and listen. I hold my hands out. I make eye contact. I make sure that students are facing me, eyes and ears ready for what I've got coming next. You'll state the goal of the lesson and the relevance of the skill. Students are ready to connect the new learning. That's the goal here. Today, we're going to learn to spell words with the consonant LE pattern. This will help you spell these words accurately in your writing and also help you read those words accurately when you see them in and out of school. Step 3 is where the real deep work is done here for the intervention setting. It's where you're going to build up those subskills in service to your ultimate goal of spelling long words. Well, I should say that's your intermediary goal. Your ultimate goal is to impact written expression and reading comprehension. Let's see. So we can use what we know about syllables and word parts to help us spell words. Every syllable has a vowel sound. It's that vowel sound that opens the mouth and drops the jaw. Put a finger on your chin and feel your jaw drop when you say your name, for example. Melinda. 3 drops, 3 syllables. Count the syllables in the word development. Watch me first. Development. So you can model with your finger on your chin while clearly saying the syllables. Students listen to the teacher, model the sounds and words, and then students do this, repeat, echo, do that in unison to count the number of syllables. How many times did your chin drop? 4 times. So there are 4 syllables in the word development. Breaking words into syllables helps us spell those long words correctly. Again, you can bend and flex here as needed. If this is something that they're struggling with, then we want to give that direct, explicit instruction. Otherwise, we're just sort of bubbling up this prior knowledge to set them up for success for the syllable division task for spelling. Let's see. There we go. All right, now we're still here on step 3. Let's also review what we know about the consonant LE syllable pattern. This pattern is always found at the end of words with 2 or more syllables, as in the word tumble and dismantle. Repeat after me and listen to the end of each word. Tumble, tumble. Dismantle, dismantle. Tumble has 2 syllables, tumble. I hear the sounds b-ul in the final syllable. It's a consonant LE syllable pattern. Dismantle has 3 syllables, dismantle. I hear the sounds t-ul in that final syllable, tul. It's a consonant LE syllable pattern. This syllable type is never accented. Listen again. Tumble, dismantle. Repeat after me and emphasize the accented syllable in each word. Tumble, students echo. Dismantle, students echo. We're helping prime that ear for spelling. Now, watch as I sound and spell these words. Tumble, tumble. And I would use that line as scaffolding, either have the students make a dot for each syllable or draw a line to help them to prepare to spell the word as well. First syllable, tum, and we're going to spell by syllable here. Tum, t-m, t-u-m. Second syllable, bull. It's a consonant LE syllable. Bull, b-ul. B-L-E. What word? Tumble. Say it with me. Tumble. All right, sweep our finger there and get unison response. Here we're still modeling. Dismantle has 3 syllables. Dismantle. Let's spell by syllable. First syllable, dis, d-is, D-I-S. Second syllable, man, M-A-N. Third syllable, tul. It's the final syllable. I hear t-ul, so I know it's going to be spelled with that consonant L-E, T-L-E. What's the word? Dismantle. Say it with me. Dismantle. And I usually say it the smooth way so that we're reading all those parts together. All right, in the next lesson step, you'll demonstrate with a think aloud. You need to be clear, consistent, concise here. You'll display and refer to that syllable chart as needed to support their spelling. You can also show and refer to the student handout as you model the steps here. We're going to practice spelling long words 1 syllable at a time. We'll use the chart in your handout. I'll say the word and you'll repeat it. Then we'll spell it 1 syllable at a time. Just watch me for now. So you know we're going to use the I do, we do, you do modeling for explicit learning here. So that's where we are on step 4 of our lesson. Another note here, when we talk about using this chart, you may be familiar with phoneme grapheme mapping for shorter words, where we take a word like cat and map the k to a C, to an A, t to a T using each box. This is the longer word form of that activity, so that we're going to do syllable mapping in this case. You could have groups of words that would be appropriate for morpheme mapping. But because we're working on the consonant LE pattern, we're going to use syllable mapping here. All right, so on modeling at this point, I've chosen my words in my lesson preparation. The first word is simple. Simple, simple. I hear 2 syllables. I notice the last syllable has a consonant p and the ul sound, pull. But I'm going to start spelling with that first syllable. Simple, sim, I think I've got it spelled here. Yes, S-I-M. And you're going to write sim in the first column of your spelling chart because that's the first syllable. Now, the second and last syllable in this word is pull. Pull. I know that's a final, a consonant LE syllable. I'm going to spell that P-L-E. Now, in our lesson preparation, we have prepared our chart to scaffold and ask our students to check the pattern after they spell here. So that's the next step. Check your pattern and then write the word all together. I know I need to add that E at the end because it has the consonant LE pattern. Simple. It's at the end of the word, pull. It's not accented, and there's a hint of a vowel sound. So now I write the whole word and read it out loud. Simple. Your turn. Write the word in its parts. Check your pattern, and let's read it together. Simple. Here, of course, you may choose to incorrectly spell the second syllable based on what you've seen your students do. You might spell it with P-U-L, for example. Then you can model that check there with the check the pattern column. Let me check. Oh, yeah, that's a consonant LE pattern. I need to change my spelling to P-L-E. That's the goal there. All right, after that, it's time for guided practice. This is the we do portion of the lesson. Again, refer to that syllable chart as needed and to the student handout that you've prepared as you work together here. Students complete the guided practice section of the handout as you prompt them through each step in the strategy, one word at a time. You'll provide immediate corrective feedback and affirmative feedback here for each word that emphasizes those target patterns. You want to incorporate word meaning as needed. If you haven't done any previous vocabulary work with these words, you want to make sure they're practicing with words they know the meaning of, because again, for orthographic mapping, we're bonding together the sounds, spelling, and meaning. After checking each word for accurate spelling here and providing that feedback to each student, you'll prompt students to read each word in unison before continuing on to the next word. We don't want them to practice errors, so we're going to dictate one at a time, check, and then read in unison and move on. You can follow this routine that's stated on that student practice, and of course you'll have the PowerPoint as an example of the lesson flow as well. All right, let's practice together. Listen and echo as I say each word. Then you'll say the word again, one syllable at a time. Then you'll say and spell each syllable. Check the pattern against what you wrote, then write the whole word accurately. Then we'll read the whole word together out loud. All right, our word is rumble. Echo, rumble. Say the word again, one syllable at a time. Rumble. Say and spell each syllable. Rum, R-U-M. I think I've got it up here. Yep. Bull. B-ul. I hear that ul at the end. I know it's a consonant L-E syllable. I'm going to spell it with consonant B and then the L-E. I'll check that pattern. Yep, I added my E. Write the whole word, R-U-M-B-L-E. And let's read. Rumble. Next word, subtitle. Subtitle. Let's say it one syllable at a time. Subtitle. Say and spell each syllable. Sub. Tie. Remember, we've got an open syllable here. We're going to spell that pattern with the consonant and just the vowel letter you hear in that open syllable. And final syllable, toll. I hear that ul sound. It's going to be a consonant LE syllable type. I'm going to spell it TLE. Check your patterns. Here we had 2 prompts prepared for them for this particular word. Let's write it all together. And now let's read the word the smooth way. Subtitle. So that is our guided practice there. Again, you want to dictate and provide feedback one word at a time so they don't practice errors. Here we've got individual practice, but that doesn't mean independent practice yet. We're going to reduce some of the scaffolding, but we still want to check in as we're doing this to make sure that they are practicing accurately before we expect them to get to automaticity here. So you're going to say one word at a time and provide that individual corrective and affirmative feedback before going on to the next word. You'll follow that same procedure that was stated there on the student practice page. Say the word, ask the students to echo. Students say the word again, one syllable at a time, then repeat and spell each syllable. Check the pattern using the prompts you've prepared in advance there. Then write the whole word. Students then read the word out loud. And you can do this in unison and then move to the next word. And here we have prepared additional practice with startle, handle, unstable. You've noticed I prepped them for both the consonant LE pattern and to check their open syllable spelling because that was identified as a weakness through earlier assessment and observation. So again, you dictate the words one at a time, provide feedback, read aloud before going to the next word. Startle, startle, check, write, say, handle, handle, check, write, say, unstable, unstable. We're going to check those syllables, write, and read. We not only want to provide practice at the word level, we also want to provide practice writing sentences as well. So this is part of step 6 here of our explicit lesson plan. Now let's write these words within sentences. Listen as I say a short sentence. Repeat the sentence, write the sentence. You'll check your writing using COPS, that acronym, to edit. And this is something that another routine that you have practiced with your students. You may have an advanced organizer for this posted in the classroom. Here it's included right there on their lesson because they'll need it for their individual or independent home practice as well. Here, students listen and repeat each sentence. Again, it would be helpful, likely, for students to put a dot or a dash on their paper as a cognitive support for memory to help recall each spoken word. For example, if I dictated the sentence, the man wore a simple blue shirt. Students repeat, the man, I think I've got it. The man wore a simple blue shirt. Now they've got that scaffold to recall the sentence as they're writing it there. Students write each word in the sentence and then use that COPS strategy on their handout to check their writing and their spelling. Of course, you want to provide individual affirmative and corrective feedback here. After all students have checked and corrected their writing as needed, we'll ask students to read each sentence out loud with you. The man wore a simple blue shirt. A great time to work on your phrasing and prosody as well as needed. All right, here's number 2. The wave came in with a deep rumble. Echo. The wave came in with a deep rumble. The wave came in with a deep rumble. Now write the sentence. We'll have the students write. We can prompt them in phrases if they still need more repetition. Just give them a couple of words at a time. And I also need to let you know that these sentences are either pulled directly from our authentic text or inspired by that text. This is from The Seventh Man, that story in particular. They include the targeted word patterns for reading and spelling, of course, and this supports those expectations for reading comprehension and written expression as we transfer that information to and from the core expectations. All right, here on step number 7, an explicit lesson format always includes this review of the new learning. We want to get in another layer of repetition at this step. These repetitions support long-term memory learning and automaticity. We're also reiterating teaching for transfer to authentic text and writing. So at this step, we might say, we learned to spell long words with the consonant LE pattern by breaking the words down and spelling them syllable by syllable. Then we checked our targeted pattern, the consonant LE syllable, to make sure we spelled it correctly. Then we wrote the whole word and read it out loud. We also wrote sentences from the story that included words with that consonant LE pattern. So in this case, we're emphasizing not just the new learning, but also the routine that we're introducing that we plan to use again for spelling. All right, in this lesson step, number 8, a quick preview of what's coming next. Students listen and are primed now to connect the upcoming learning to the current concept or information you've just taught. In this case, I might say, we're going to spell words with the suffix able next. And you want to show this with a card, some kind of advanced organizer. This suffix has 2 syllables, and bull. Because the suffix is not accented when it's added to a base word, we hear the sound in the first syllable of the suffix able. It's different from the base word able. We spell that suffix sound with an A, that suffix sound with an A. The second syllable has the consonant LE pattern, bull, and we spell that BLE. We'll spell base words with the able suffix added, such as adjustable and enjoyable. That's coming up tomorrow. And then number 9, assign independent home practice. That's something we've prepared for in our lesson prep as well. Students need lots of repetition of learned concepts and many practice opportunities to improve their spelling accuracy and automaticity. When we provide a variety of words for reading and spelling practice, that supports the transfer of that information as well. So to close out the lesson, you can assign independent practice. You'll write a sentence for each of these words. Let's read these words together. Startle, and you can use a decoding routine that you might have for reading long words as well. Subtitle, subtitle. Let's circle prefix unstable, unstable. Of course, you want to address meaning as needed here. Here's the directions on your student practice sheet. First, think about how you'll use each word in a sentence. Say your sentence out loud before writing so you can check it. Then write the sentence and read it out loud and check it again using COPS to check your work. And that's what that student practice page looks like in the handout that you can download if you choose to. Students complete the independent practice section of their handout for that additional spelling, writing, and reading practice. The ultimate goal of our lesson here is to impact written expression and reading comprehension here through this medial work with spelling. All of those layers of repetition are intentional, of course, for all students, but especially for our students who are struggling with word level reading skills. If we look at this chart, which I bet you've seen some version of along the way, but we know that our students who struggle need more repetitions of a concept in order to get that cemented into long-term memory, to get beyond accuracy to automaticity. Let's look at why that practice is invaluable here. So for some students, they can get a new reading or spelling concept after being introduced to it and seeing and practicing it 1 to 4 to 14 times. They've got that accurate and automatic and can retrieve that quickly from long-term memory. Our students who are struggling readers and writers may need dozens more of those instructional modeling, guided practice, independent practice opportunities with feedback in order to get to accuracy with those same concepts. For our students who've been identified with a learning disability, 50, 100, many more repetitions with planned intentional practice opportunities to get to that efficient word recognition and spelling retrieval. So we can make sure that we use our instructional intensifiers, such as an intensive explicit spelling lesson like demonstrated here, smaller group size, more practice opportunities. All of that provides the conditions to get that repetition to our students so they can get to accuracy first and then to automaticity through lots and lots of practice here. All right, let's put all of this together here so that we can review the lesson preparation from the student perspective as it flows together one more time. So based on your students' assessed needs and your observations, you'll pre-write the target spelling pattern or concept with those example words in the top section. So you have filled this in. You know that you're going to preview with your students when we hear final "ol" in a word, we're going to spell that with consonant LE pattern, as in tumble, dismantle. We also know that our students were struggling with that open syllable spelling. So an open syllable, when we hear a long vowel sound at the end of an open syllable, we're going to spell that with just that single vowel. The E in the first syllable, D, describe. The O in the middle syllable, so, in absolute. So we're going to review them, set them up for success here. You'll also prepare a list of words to dictate, pulling those words from authentic content-specific texts that the students are expected to read in their core classes. You'll pre-fill the targeted patterns in the check it column in the same order that you'll dictate those selected words. You'll always model one example for your students. That's part of setting them up for success, letting them know what the expectations are there. And you'll use that routine that's included here on the student practice section. And you'll have a copy of that PowerPoint. And I also actually have this scripted out in, I think, Word or PDF format as a lesson plan. I'm happy to share that if anybody wants that as well. So you'll model one example for your students using that routine written above. So for ours, it was the word simple. Our first word is simple, echo, simple. I'm going to say the word again, one syllable at a time. Just watch me. Simple. We're going to spell it by each syllable. First syllable, sim, S-I-M. You can sound it out if they need it by phonemes or just get to writing, depending on the layer of scaffolding your students need. Second syllable, pull. We're definitely going to emphasize this part. I hear a consonant sound followed by ul in the final position. I know I've got a consonant LE syllable here. P-L-E. I'm not going to forget to add that E. I'm going to check it. Did I spell my consonant LE accurately? Yes, I did. I'm going to write the whole word, S-I-M-P-L-E. Read it simple. Read it the smooth way. And then you'll continue with guided practice with the other words on your list for this section. All right, we don't want to just work on spelling in isolation. As mentioned, the goal is to build accuracy and automaticity in support of written expression. In this section, we've prepared for sentence dictation that includes sentences or phrases from our authentic content area text, and that include our targeted spelling patterns. Be sure to keep these sentences relatively short, 6 to 8 words, so we don't overtax working memory as they recall the words and their spellings. The first one was, the man wore a simple blue shirt. The wave came in with a deep rumble. We could split that one as we needed as well. The wave came in, right, with a deep rumble, right. This is the perfect time to fold in targeted concepts from earlier lessons as well to get that cumulative spaced practice, especially if students are differentiating different spelling options such as TCH and CH, for example. Also, of course, include those editing prompts for the students, such as the COPS mnemonic that's used here, to make sure they are attending to all of the aspects of sentence construction here, the capitalization, organization. Here we're focusing on word order, punctuation, and spelling. You can use whatever is consistent with your curriculum. And then finally, we'll plan another round of reading and writing for independent practice. The words are provided, or you could, here they're provided on the example sheet, but you could dictate them first to finish your lesson, have the students write and fill them in, spell and write them in on their own. The task then is to promote sentence production. So before it was dictation, now we're going to further work on transferring that skill into written expression and sentence production. So you want to teach, model, and practice the printed routine with the students, asking them to first think, plan, and then say their sentence out loud before writing it. That will help them use their oral language skills to plan their writing, to organize their thoughts, and to spell the words. As noted several times, the end goal for spelling instruction is not typically to learn words in isolation for spelling bee, for example, but to improve written composition and reading comprehension. So we want to keep working to transfer that skill to reading and writing with lots of opportunities for both, hopefully embedded with your authentic text. All right, I am wrapping up now. I encourage you to revisit that IES practice guide for more evidence-based strategies for decoding and spelling long words. This particular list shown here is a great resource for practice activities to move from accuracy to automaticity with these word level skills. All right, I'll share my takeaways. I hope that you have found this time useful and that you have some takeaways as well. I hope that I've emphasized that we should use a synthetic approach for this type of intervention, especially with all those subskills needed to consolidate in order to be successful spellers of multi-syllable words. Hopefully you've gotten that emphasis on using authentic academic content-based text so that we can practice these skills and transfer them to core academic expectations. Part of direct explicit instruction is concise teacher talk, perky pace, using routines and making sure that they're modeled. I do, we do, you do, used consistently and planned for lots of repetition and practice with affirmative and corrective feedback. Promote practice with reading connected text and written expression. So we don't want to just work in isolation, lists of words. We want to make sure we are using that skill to provide opportunities for reading comprehension and writing. All right, so how about you? Any confirmations regarding your current instruction or ideas for integration and implementation as you plan for the upcoming school year? Any action items, any questions, comments, your experiences?